8-4. Results are official. 16. Number 2 is dragging you along. $5, $3, $2.20. The 4, Withrow for 40 to 60. The 1, all lathered up, $3.20. The Perfecta, $1 ticket, $7.30. 50-cent try, $15.15. 50-cent super, $70. Number 1, all lathered up, 3. The 2, dragging you along, the winner. The 3, Magic by the Sea, 7. The 4, Withrow, 2. The 5, Mr. Legend, 5. The 6, No Joke Folks, 6. The 7, Up the Thrill, 8. The 8, 9106, 4. Top Down, 317, 256, 8, 4 on the bottom. The mile, 154, 1/5. 17th race, win place show. Perfecta try, Superfecta wager on the 17th. Out! Wager now!
Hey, Scott Spears, WGH Talk, and I'm here with the 40th Treasurer of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow. We are in the stands of the Little Brown Jug, 77th edition. Mary Ellen, are you having a good time?
Yes.
It's fun to watch the horses out here. What do you make of the first year, 77 years, $1 million purse?
I tell you, that's exciting.
Good for the state of Ohio, good for Delaware.
Right.
Here we are at the Little Brown Jug, and Mary Ellen and Roger are going to join me later over in the jockey house after the Little Brown Jug races have all concluded. So stay tuned for that. Hey, Scott Spears here, and the 77th Little Brown Jug has just concluded, and I am joined by the 40th Treasurer of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow, and the voice of the Little Brown Jug for 55 years, Roger Huston. Roger, it's all just concluded, first $1 million purse. What was it like today?
Spectacular.
I bet so.
I mean, there's nothing like this in the entire North America for pacers. Richest race in North America for pacers. Because see, the North American Cup that's up in Canada, they go for $1 million Canadian, but that's only 800,000 in the U.S.
For people who have not been to the Little Brown Jug in the 77-year history, why is it so important? Why is it so special to people?
Tradition, tradition, tradition. And it all became a thought. There were no major stakes for 3-year-old pacers. Joe Neville went to Hank Thompson, who was the editor of the newspaper, knowing he needed some publicity, and those two gentlemen petitioned the Grand Circuit of Harness Racing to develop a 3-year-old event for pacers here at Delaware, Ohio. And they had 2 races, I think in 44 and 45, that were like preliminary, and they were drawing crowds around 10, 11,000. First actual race was 1946. Ensign Hanover, Curly Smart won it, and the Little Brown Jug was off and pacing.
Mary Ellen, you were Treasurer of the state of Ohio, Treasurer of Marion County, Treasurer of the United States. Tradition is a very important part of events, and certainly the Little Brown Jug has a tradition.
That's right. Everybody really looks forward to it, and it is a big event.
When you were Treasurer of the state of Ohio, when big events like this went on, and county fairs, people come out. It's a big moneymaker for the state.
Right, and I'm sure Delaware County does very well.
Now, Roger, how did you get the job as the announcer here 55 years ago?
The announcer was Charlie Hinkle, and he accepted the job as the voice of the new basketball team in Los Angeles for the ABA. And it was the first year of the ABA. And he was at the Meadows, where he was announcing 1967. And Hank Thompson was there. And Charlie told him, he said, I can't do the jug this year. Now you gotta remember, that was the second week of August. The jug's in just under a month. And he says, I can't be there, I'm going to California. Hank says, what do I do? And Stan Bergstein, who was the head of the United States Trotting Association, said, I can't do the full week, but I can do Jug Day. Corwin Nixon, who was president of the United States Trotting Association, said, why don't you get that young kid down in Zine? So Hank drove back here to Delaware that night from Meadowlands, Pennsylvania, and called the operator. He said, how many Hustons do you have? And the operator told him 7. That was in the days when he came through the operator. So he says, give me the first one. That happened to be my father, Cecil. So when he got Dad on the line, he said, oh, you're looking for giving the phone number. Hank called me, and the rest is history.
Rest is history. 55 years doing this. What time did you start this morning? It's just 7:20 p.m. when we're taping this. What time did you start this morning?
I got here almost exactly 12 hours ago.
12 hours ago. And what did you do during the week? How many hours do you put in during Jug Week?
I would guess somewhere at 12-hour each day. 5 days, that says 60. I'm here on Saturday as well, maybe 4, so about 64.
I know, it's a day. It's a long day, Roger. I understand. I appreciate you being here doing this with us.
If I have my halls, it takes care of it. But I think I ate, that's a world record today.
Oh, really?
Not so much today, but the entire week. I went through 88 Hall's eucalyptus cough drops this week.
Really?
Keeps the voice fresh.
Keeps me from coughing. I have allergies galore, and they can't find out what allergy it is or anything like that, but
it's there. It's there, but you got the cuff. Mary Ellen, we were talking before Roger came over. Of course, we can hear him all around the park here. And you were saying, boy, that's a great voice.
It is. Yeah, I really enjoyed hearing your voice. Yeah.
Very distinctive.
Yes.
that's how I got the nickname The Voice.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't nothing to do with announcing, but when I went to the Meadows, the publicity director, first time he heard me, he said, man, your voice is just perfect for a microphone. And that's one of the things I think that makes a good announcer, because if you have a high-pitched voice or something like that, it just doesn't come across on the PA system like you want.
You have to have a certain timbre and a certain feel, because it's going all over this fairgrounds, all over this park when you're up there doing that. Are there any rituals that you do prior to today, the big final day?
I told you earlier that same guy takes me to the infield judges stand every day, Butch Green. He's a few years older than I am, but I carried out groceries in Xenia, Ohio, and he drove a taxi cab. And lo and behold, we both came to Delaware, not knowing each one was coming to Delaware. In 1967, there was Butch Green, and here was I, and we've been together ever since here in Delaware.
Mary Ellen, I want to get this story on the television program here. We told it on radio earlier on. Now, when you were treasurer of the state of Ohio, you were presenting to a horse.
Yes.
Tell that story to our audience.
Well, the horse won the race, and I was going to present him with a blanket, and he dropped dead.
The horse?
Yes.
In Circleville?
Right, in Circleville.
Pickaway County.
And it was a surprise.
That would be a startling experience.
Yes.
You're there to present the blanket.
Yes, the owner was very upset. Yeah.
You know, the one thing I don't think people realize, these horses are like family
Yeah.
to the trainers and the owners and such. And I can tell you how that owner felt.
Yeah.
Devastated.
Yeah.
It would like one of his own children had died.
That's probably right.
That's the case all the time.
Roger, doing this for 55 years, what is your most memorable moment in 55 years? What sticks out? First thing that pops in your brain.
2015, Wiggle It Jiggle It, winning the race. But it had a magnified story because he kind of became the people's horse that year. Montreal Tig, a young black boy, and his dad, George Tig, the trainer and owner, they went to so many locations and raced Wiggle It Jiggle It, and he developed fans everywhere. Now, he wasn't eligible to the Little Brown Jug. They had to pay, I think at that time, it was like $35,000 just to get in the race. Everybody else paid like $6,000 regular entry fee if you were eligible. So he came here to Delaware knowing that Wiggle It Jiggle It didn't get around a half-mile track the best of way. The turns were a little too sharp for him. So we get to the race, and Wiggle It Jiggle It gets into a first elimination, and he makes a couple skips in front of the pavilion in the first turn. So and he won easy, but then he had to deal with the final. So instead of risking the chance of making him a break, Montreal drove the horse on the outside the entire mile, 6-8 feet from the rail, so that the turn was more sweeping and helped the horse. And it did. But he was going probably somewhere in the vicinity of 130, 140 feet more than the horse that was inside of him in the distance of a whole mile. So he actually gets to go farther because he's out in the racetrack. Horse by the name of Lost for Words, Brian Brown, local trainer. One of his best shots to ever win the jug. Was on top, and Wiggle It Jiggle It was on the outside. And they raced neck and neck, nose to nose, toe to toe, stride for stride for more than a half a mile. And I actually said in that race, this battle has turned into a war! And you can hear the crowd just yell their brains out when I said it. At the top of the stretch, with less than an 8 to go, Wiggle It Jiggle It was falling behind. Probably a length and a half, which would be about 12, 15 feet behind the other horse. George Tig, the owner and trainer, turned his back on the race and started to walk away because he knew he wasn't going to win the Little Brown Jug. And somehow, Wiggle It Jiggle It dug in that final 16th of a mile, came back, and won it in the very final stride.
Oh.
And as soon as the race was over, I said, folks, you've just witnessed the greatest race in all of harness racing.
2015.
2015.
You know, Roger, we all have these moments as broadcasters when you do something for a long time. Sometimes you say the wrong word. Sometimes you jumble things up. What's one that sticks out in your mind? A moment where things didn't just come out like you wanted them to.
Oh, there's been a lot of things like that. I guess the most embarrassing one was when I went to Australia. And at that point in time, they had hub rails. And one of my catchphrases was, if a horse was the favorite and he was locked in, I'd say, and so-and-so's nailed to the rail, which means he can't get out. Well, I picked the wrong horse to say it in Australia. The Messiah was nailed to the rail.
There would be some reaction to that, I would imagine.
It is the most played race call on YouTube, I think.
It's on YouTube. When it comes out of your mouth, do you know instantly that you've said something?
Not necessarily.
No.
This was a normal phrase for me.
Right.
And when you announce, you don't memorize one particular horse. You got to memorize, in this case, I think it was 14 horses in the race. So I'm not thinking Messiah when I say it. It just happened to be Messiah.
As you said, you come up with signature calls as time goes on. What are some of your favorite signature calls, and how did they develop?
The one thing that I probably got other announcers doing, and I think I was about the first to do it, was calling off the fractions and being able to say the quarter and 28 and 2 and the half and 53 and 4, and figure in my head in a split second just how many seconds and fifths that was from the quarter to the half. And now a lot of other announcers are doing it. One other phrase that I kind of developed, and not too many announcers really use it, but I love the thought of saying, so-and-so can see them all, dead last. But I was scared that the Huston drivers would be upset with me. So I went to a gentleman by the name of Dwayne Parker. He was from Morrow, Ohio, believe it or not. And I said, I got something I want to do. I says, the next time you're racing, and this was at the Meadows, and you're dead last, I'm going to say, Dwayne Parker can see them all. And I says, I guarantee you, when you get off the bike in the paddock after the race is over, they're going to come up, are you going to let Roger say something like that about you? Sure enough, they did. And I started using it, and now it's kind of accepted. The fact is, I got one driver, he drove here today by the name of Tony Hall. He loves it when I say, and Tony Hall can see them all. You know, just little things like that.
Mary Ellen, in the speeches you gave over the years, local treasurer, state treasurer, certainly national treasurer, did you ever have a mishap while you were giving a speech, or something you said during a speech?
Well, I probably did. Nothing comes to mind.
But it's easy to do.
Oh, yeah.
How did you prepare to give a speech?
Oh, I would go over and over it and get it in my own words, so it was mine. Yeah.
Roger, how do you get?
Let me answer that real quick on me. As far as an announcer, the hardest thing for me to do is a funeral, and I've done probably 5 or 6. And I have to stay up the night before, write it down word for word, to say it without getting a tear in your eye or something like that. It's got to be coming out just natural. And I've done about 5 or 6 eulogies, or whatever you want to call them, and real close friends, people involved in harness racing. And the idea, you've got to do it over and over. We don't have teleprompters or anything. I'm sure you didn't have a teleprompter when you was in politics.
Oh, no.
Now these, where should I start? President? No, I shouldn't start there. Politicians or anybody, everything's off the teleprompter. They very seldom ad-lib. And when they ad-lib, they usually get in trouble.
Well, you know something, Roger, it's interesting. You're up there. We were in the booth with you earlier, and you have your book there, and you have your microphone, and there's a television there, and you're just doing your thing. How do you fall into that? Because most people would watch that and say, there's no way in the world I could do that. And you're just turning around in your chair, calling the race, you have your binoculars. How do you do it? Does something run through your mind, or does it just come out?
It just comes out. You've got to be very used to doing what you do. Now, you don't say the same things all the time. And you might have 50 things in the back of your mind, and you just grab it, whatever takes place. And go like it's a natural thing. I never go into a race thinking I'm going to use a phrase or something like that in this race, because you don't know how the race is going to develop. We had a horse here, and I think it was 1982.
We're chatting here with Roger Huston, The Voice, and Mary Ellen Withrow, 40th Treasurer of the United States. Roger, I've just been calling races all day, so it's understandable.
We had 25 races today.
Right.
Falcon Seals, he wasn't eligible to the Little Brown Jug. So we got him in. I think it was 6,000. No. And I talked to the driver, Tom Harmer, before the race, and he told me how fast he would go to the quarter, the half, 3/4. And I asked him, I said, how fast will the mile go? And he says, I don't know, that's up to Falcon Sealster. He hit almost every fraction within a fifth of a second, as he predicted. And for one reason or another, past the 3/4, I used the line that I don't think I've ever used it since. Never will again. If you haven't been on your feet,
I tell you what we're going to do here, because there's actually somebody here who wants to say something to Roger. We're going to take a quick break and come back and wrap this up with our remaining 5 minutes right after this.
Hold that thought. We're going to get back to that, but we're getting ready to hear the post here for 16.
Starting gate. Middle Neck starting gate. The home of Yankee Reserve. Pacers are out and behind the gate. Gates waits on the stretch out. Here they come. They're off and pacing, dragging you along. Goes right out for the lead. Up on the outside, runs somewhere second. All lathered up, gets away third. And the outside, up the thrill. Now fourth and going forward for Cam McGowan. Now third on the outside. Got a new leader that's Roach Ronsor on top. Up the thrill. Now second on the outside. Dragging you along is third. All lathered up. Racing fourth as there is on the opening quarter. 27-4 out. Into the turn, Magic by the Sea, it's away fifth. Racing Sins and Mr. Legend, seventh, no joke folks. Round the turn they go, on now by 9106. Into the lane first time, coming to the halfway point. On top of the field, showing the way. Run Zor to the halfway point. Dragging you along is right there second for James Hoffman. After half, 55-3, 28-3, second panel. On to the backside they go. Here comes Scott Cisco. No joke, folks. Now fourth, now third. Pull in the pocket. Kane Kaufman and dragging you along. Down the backside they go. Rose Ronsor, the leader, dragging you along. Up on the outside, 6-0's in front. All lathered up, racing third. No joke, folks, on the outside fourth. 3/4, 124-4, 29-1, third panel. Midway around the turn, on the outside, dragging you along. Here comes Dexter Dodd, all lathered up. Now third and closing on the outside, into the stretch. Coming home, Rose Ronsor, dragging you along. Rose Ronsor, dragging you along. 154-1.
Hey, Scott Spears back here, WGH Talk. The Little Brown Jug 77th edition has just rounded up, and we are here with two of my favorite people, 40th Treasurer of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow, and the voice himself, the man who just called races for 12, or was here doing things for 12 hours, called races for quite a while today, the voice himself, Roger Huston. Roger, tell us about what you just put in your mouth. We saw it on video there. How's this keeping you going?
Paul's eucalyptus cough drops. I never cough when I got them. And for some reason, the funny thing about that is, I usually can get 3 races out of a horse cough drop. Take as soon as the race is over, just lay it over the side. It's one I don't have lead poisoning because I lay it on a painted surface. And on that 3rd race, sometimes it gets pretty small. And if you get in an exciting race, you swallow it. And that can cause problems sometimes. But anyway, getting back to Falcon Caesar, for some reason I threw it in it. I'd never practiced or anything. If you've never been on your feet, you better stand up now. And that's the signature of mine in that particular mile.
You know, it's interesting, Roger, because it's your allergies, not your voice certainly is not worn out. It's just allergies.
Well, it's not the strongest right now after 60 or so races this week, but no, it's the allergies. And the funny thing, it doesn't have to be announcing horses. I can be talking on the telephone. I was doing that interview a week or so ago. For one reason or another, all of a sudden, I don't know whether my voice changes and getting to a certain place and to call it or what. I don't know. I've had it for maybe 20 years.
Well, you know what? Thank goodness we've got the cough drops.
Yeah.
Because they're working okay. Roger, the big race today, again, $1 million purse. A lot was made of that. Fox was here, Fox Sports 2. Everything was broadcast there. When the final race came on a day with all this folderol, you're on Fox Sports 2. Your voice can be heard all over the nation. The $1 million purse, that looming in the background. What was it like when it was time to start that race?
Normal anticipation, nervous, hoping that you don't make a mistake. The hard part, we have 2 drivers in the final. They're brothers from Australia, Andrew and Todd McCarthy. Their colors are identical as far as the helmets and everything, except one of them has a green stripe on his sleeve right here. All the other colors are the same, but one of them has a green stripe, the other one has no stripe. And so that was really bugging me today because the sulkies were identical, the wheels were all identical, everything matched. The horses didn't have any extra color. The only way I could tell them apart was that green stripe on one of those colors. And so that was bugging me today, but I didn't have any trouble with it, got through it without any problem. It's little things like that you worry about and you hope. The other big problem here at Delaware, once you get to that 5:30, 6 o'clock range, they come out of that final turn and the sun is shining directly into your face. And believe me when I tell you, that sun can cause problems with you as well. I don't need the binoculars in the stretch, but when I put the binoculars up, it kind of gets rid of the sun and I can get through it.
You know, we were out earlier doing some footage, which you'll see on this video, shooting from the Roger Huston broadcast pavilion. Now, we asked you this while we were out there, but I want to bring it up again because to be at a race with such prestige, tradition, you said in the beginning, to be here again, $1 million purse for the first time in the history of the jug, 77 years, 55 years for you, and you're broadcasting from the pavilion that has your name on it. What's that like? Most people will not have an event like that happen in their life.
When they did it on the occasion of my 50th year here, I was totally surprised. I had no idea what they were going to do, and I knew that something was probably going to come up, and my daughter was here, and I guess she knew about it, and they had the sign kind of covered up. The judges stand now, you couldn't see it, but then when it come time, they took it off, and we're down there, and I couldn't see it. And they said they've named the announcer's booth, Roger Huston announcer's booth, and it'll be that way even when I'm going, I guess.
Well, you know, and that's an interesting thing. Mary Ellen, you recently had a museum in Marion dedicated in your honor, the Mary Ellen Withrow Museum. What do you want people to know when they come there 100 years from now, when we're all gone? What would you like them to know about that and yourself?
Well, I would hope that they would still be playing the films I made and everything so that it would be explained.
Because it's very important to
Yes.
know the history of it.
That's right.
Now, Roger, 100 years from now, when we're all gone, and somebody else is broadcasting from the Roger Huston Pavilion at the 177th Little Brown Jug, what do you want them to know about the pavilion from which they broadcast from? When they say, what's that?
Just want them to know that Roger Huston put his entire heart and soul into each and every race that I've called. I think somewhere around 183,065, something like that as of today. I call, the biggest criticism I get is I call every race like it's the Little Brown Jug. But the thing that is about it to me is that particular race, even though it may be a maiden trot or a $5,000 claiming race, that might be as close as that owner, trainer, driver ever get to being in the Little Brown Jug. So that particular race at that particular moment is the #1 race in all of harness racing. So that's why you give it at all. And I hope that's what they remember about me in the future.
You know, this is an important thing, I think, for children to know, because obviously you've got two very successful people here in their fields. Mary Ellen, you and I were talking about this earlier. Roger, we talked about it over the telephone last week during the interview. When you choose a field in life, yes, you've got to pay your bills. Yes, you've got to eat. But does money ever cross your mind when you're going for the field you want to do? Do you ever take a job based on the money?
No, I never have.
How did you get Treasurer of the United States, Guinness Book of World Records, signing more money than anybody else, currency, ever? You're still there. Museum in the Marion County Historical Society with your name for you. What led you there? What got you there? That money was not the incentive. What was it?
Well, I loved what I did. I really loved talking to people because I would always learn things from people, and I was always excited to see them and get to know them. It meant a lot to me.
She right there used the #1 thing that's so important. You gotta love what you do. I feel so sorry for that guy that's working, doing a job, and when he goes to work in the morning, oh, do I have to go there again today? I hate this. Oh, come on. I feel sorry for that person. I've always said, I've been announcing for 64 years, I haven't worked a day in my life.
Yeah.
I didn't work today.
And it's interesting because Mary Ellen is here, part of our broadcast team today, still out doing things, still active. Do you think that love of your job played into your longevity?
Oh, yes, I really do.
Yeah. And Roger here, 55 years here at the Little Brown Jug, talked about his 80th birthday, or 50 years here, but he's over 80 now, 80th birthday last year. Still, you'll be back next year.
Good Lord willing, the creek don't rise, and the only thing I add to that creek's getting awful deep.
Do you ever see a day where you could come and watch somebody else do it?
You mean do the jug?
Do the jug. Would there ever be a retirement date?
Oh, this is horrible. The way I want to die, here they are! But no, of course you hope to a degree that you'll live past your last day of working and things like that, but I think I'd probably have the urge to announce again or something like that. I cannot go to a racetrack and just have a good time if I'm not working. I'll go anywhere where I'm working, but the working is my enjoyment. I mean, I really don't have fun going to another track and watching 13 races or something like that. I'd rather stay home and watch them on TV or something like that, you know.
Well, that's interesting. Would you say you're a fan of harness racing, or are you a fan of broadcasting what you do?
I actually was broadcasting before I ever was working as an announcer, because there was a guy by the name of Gerald Nash, and he had the photo finish at Lebanon Raceway and was a good friend of mine. But he also did the PA system at Xenia High School for football and basketball. And if he couldn't do it, he asked me if I'd try it. So yeah, I did it. So when I was a freshman, sophomore, I was doing PA work at the Xenia Fieldhouse, or the football stadium. The interesting story about that one is, this was before I ever announced horse racing, freshman or sophomore. My cousin was the mayor of Xenia, Ohio, and to our knowledge was the first woman mayor in all the United States. 1956, 57. Her name was Olive Huston. And she was also the speech teacher at Xenia High School. And by the time I was a senior, she asked me, she says, "Roger, why have you never taken one of my speech courses?" And I said, "Well, Cousin Olive, I don't think I could get along with you." She went to the school board and got them to pass a rule or law or whatever, that the only people that could do the high school football and basketball PA work had to be students of her class. So theoretically, I got fired my first job. But I went to Wilmington College. And I don't know if you know this gentleman, but he is considered probably one of the most dramatic coaches in all the world at Wilmington College. They even named the auditorium and everything the Hugh G. Highland Memorial Theater. Hugh Highland taught me in a 6-week or 8-week semester more about being an announcer than ever. I mean, and I'm proud of another fact with Hugh. He said he had this is after a career of 50 years doing dramatics and everything at Wilmington, and he listed 2 people that he was most proud of. I was number 2, and I didn't mind being number 2. But number 1 was a student by the name of Gary Sandy. Now, do you remember Gary Sandy?
I do. WKRP.
WKRP Cincinnati. He was one of the stars of that show. So I did not mind being number 2 to Gary Sandy, but he always told everybody that, and made me feel real good.
You know, I love to ask this question. Mary Ellen, if your parents could have been alive to see you sworn in as Treasurer of the United States, what would they have thought?
Oh, they'd have been so proud.
What do you think they would have felt that day?
Well, probably really, really happy.
What part does family play in your life, in your success?
It's everything. Yeah, my family. Yeah.
In the end, it's family. Roger, yeah.
Gotta
Come on in.
go on this one. My family, this is going to sound horrible. My family knows that harness racing is number 1, and they are number 2. Now that sounds terrible to say, but my daughter realizes that, and she lets it be that way. Now that's really not taking anything away from her, because I've done all the things that a father's supposed to do and such. But she realizes, for me anyway, harness racing's number 1. So I'm different.
Now that's interesting. Now why is that? That's interesting.
Why?
Why is that? That your daughter would know that and feel that, and you know that and feel that. Why is that?
Why do I feel that way? I love what I do. Not that it's more than I love my daughter or anything like that. She wants Dad to be happy, and she knows what makes Dad happy is working and announcing horse races. I mean, I go all over the world. I mean, I just got home from Ireland and Wales, calling races over there, 14th and 15th of August. And I'm going to be in Coshocton in 10 days and Lancaster after that. And I got 3 days at the Meadows to announce, and she knows that that's #1 for me, and thank goodness she does. Now, of course, I've had 2 wives, and they didn't understand it.
And that's how we get 2 wives, because they didn't understand it. But that's okay, because, you know, it's very interesting when you work in a field like this, broadcasting, announcing, it does dominate your life, and it takes a special person to be married to somebody like that to understand that you got to go and the hours are different, and it does, it weighs.
Yeah. They'd always say, "Are you home tomorrow?" Right now they do that because they want a babysitter for the grandkids.
I think I knew was it your cousin Olive?
Olive, yeah.
I think I knew her.
She's real tall.
Yes,
Yes.
in Xenia.
Yeah.
I had some connection with her, and I can't think what it was, but
She was in politics to some degree, but it was always on the level right there in Xenia. And as I say, I think she was the first woman mayor in all of the United States back in the 50s.
yeah.
You know, it's amazing how that happens, and maybe this is the most important question, because, you know, we gave advice: do what you love, stay in it as long as you can, enjoy it, it helps with longevity. But to somebody watching this right now who maybe wants to get into politics, maybe wants to get into broadcasting, maybe wants to get into entertainment, they're saying, well, how do I get in? You know, those jobs are few and far between. You've got to win elections. You've got to get the job. There are more people than there are jobs coming out of broadcasting school. Mary Ellen, what advice do you give to that young person who wants to get into politics, but I can't do it, is what they're saying to themselves?
Well, I always tell them things don't have to be perfect. If you see something you want to do it or try to do it, and things will work out, usually.
And they started for you in '69.
Yes.
Elgin School Board.
Right.
Roger?
You can trace back in the line of at least 35 individuals that in some way I helped them in their announcing career. And that is probably what I'm most proud of. Got time for the story?
Go ahead, we got time.
Back before I ever moved back to Pennsylvania, I was living in Pompano Beach, Florida, actually Coconut Creek, Nelson down there. And I started getting letters from a 9-year-old boy. He actually nominated me for Horseman of the Year when he was 9 years old with the Horseman Fair World magazine. He would send me a letter or a tape of him calling a race at a county fair in Michigan. I answered every single letter, listened to every single tape, and then I moved to Pennsylvania in 1976. And he called me one day from Linden, Michigan. He says, could I come down and spend a week with you? I said, sure. 2 days later, he had hitched a ride with some friends and was at my doorstep at the age of 14. I took him to the Meadows, announced some qualifying races, announced an actual parimutuel race that year at the age of 14. I got him some county fairs in Ohio, got him started right. I often wondered what would have happened to Sam if I hadn't answered every one of those letters and stuff. But I did. Sam McGee went on to be the voice of Detroit Racecourse in Detroit, Michigan, 2 or 3 other racetracks, and finally the announcer at the Meadowlands in New Jersey, the biggest harness racing track, the #1 track in North America. Thank goodness I answered those letters.
Well, you never know who you'll touch.
That's right.
You know, the tentacles of those things go out forever and change people's life. Mary Ellen, what do you hope people remember about your service and your time on this planet?
Well, I hope they remember the things that I did that were important. And I did a lot of things all the way through. And I helped a lot of people. And that was my purpose in being there, to help people.
Roger?
You never know who you're talking to.
If you could write an epitaph for yourself, Roger, what would it be?
He was a county fair announcer.
That all?
They can put the other words to it, but I've always been proud that I started announcing county fairs right out of high school. I continue to do county fairs even today, 64 years later. 16 of them. I've announced, I think, 46 counties in the state of Ohio. Not their entire fair, but be a guest. Like a few weeks ago, I announced like 4 races at Lima, Ohio, as a guest appearance and stuff. So I'm proud to do it, and I'll go anywhere to follow horse races.
Still doing it.
Yep.
Now, before we wrap up here from the Little Brown Jug, the 77th edition of the Little Brown Jug. Oh, by the way, Roger, let people know who did win today. Who was the big winner?
It's My Show, a horse that was owned by Richard Young in Coconut Creek, Florida. He chose to come here because it was $1 million purse. He got beat in his first race today, but when it come time for the final, I think he finished second and had post 4 or 5 in the final, but he wins the final, going for $850,000. So he made about 425 plus 12.5, $437,500 today. It's my show.
Not bad for a day's work. Roger, I'm going to come back to you in just one second, because for people who didn't come to the Little Brown Jug today, and shame on you if you didn't, but if you didn't get to hear Roger do a call, Roger, I want to end with you doing a call here in just a second, so I'll come back to you in just a second. But Mary Ellen, coming here this year to the Little Brown Jug, you hadn't been in quite a while. What's the experience been like for people who haven't been?
Oh, it's fun to see everybody and see how much fun it is to watch the horses. I always like to watch the horses.
Horse racing is really a great tradition and something that people can have so much fun with.
That's right. They found that out in Marion, that people weren't happy when they didn't have the horse races at the fair, and it made a big difference.
When they took it away,
Yeah,
people
they
were
weren't
angry.
happy, yeah.
No, and now it's back, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Roger, give us a call to wrap up our time here at the Little Brown Jug.
This would be close to what it was actually the call. They're past the 3/4 pole. It's My Show. Second over on the outside, followed by 7 colors. Into the stretch they come. It's 7 colors on the outside now, 3 wide. Here comes It's My Show. They're head to head, nose to nose, toe to toe, coming to the wire. It's My Show over 7 colors. It's My Show wins the Little Brown Jug.
Doesn't get any better than that. 40th Treasurer of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow, and the voice himself, Roger Huston. Scott Spears for this day from the Little Brown Jug in Delaware, Ohio, heading for the dugout.